from the heart of our nation's capital, here's Family Research Council President Tony Perkins.
Joining me now to talk more about this weekend's developments with Parler, Tyler O'Neill, Senior Editor at PJ Media. Tyler, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Hey, glad to be here, Tony.
All right, describe for our listeners kind of what transpired over the weekend in taking down this conservative alternative to Twitter.
Yeah, so this has been budding for a little while. We've all known that big tech had it out to some degree for conservatives. They've been focusing on them for fact checks and various other things. But these companies seem to really crossed a Rubicon in the past few days. They, as you're aware, they suspended Twitter suspended, Facebook booted, and then Twitter finally booted President Donald Trump last week. And, he's been finally banned. Even the official president of the United States POTUS account was banned. Facebook throttled Rush Limbaugh. Limbaugh left Twitter in protest. And then today we got news that Facebook locked former Congressman Ron Paul out of his Facebook page. And like you said, turning to Parler, this has really become the huge story because so many conservatives have flocked from Twitter to Parler, which is the Twitter alternative for conservatives. And, I've lost, I believe, about 500 followers on Twitter because I think they're all deleting their accounts and moving to Parler. But then Apple and Google decided to remove Parler from their app stores, claiming that the site had failed to take down posts inciting violence. And then on Saturday, Amazon announced it would follow suit. It would actually strike Parler from its servers because it was hosting Parler on Amazon Web Services. And the ironic thing is Amazon sent an exclusive to BuzzFeed an hour before they actually let Parler know. So they screenshotted this email that they were going to send to Parler and gave that to BuzzFeed an hour before they actually let Parler know that it was getting kicked off. And so Parler went dark right at the end of the day yesterday, Pacific time, so early morning Eastern time. Parler went off the internet. And now Parler filed a lawsuit because even though, Amazon Web Services is the big player on the internet these days, there are alternatives, and Parler was discussing with them what to do. But unfortunately, after all these companies attacked Parler, the alternatives weren't interested in hosting Parler anymore. And so they cut Parler off. And so Parler filed this lawsuit. They're asking for a temporary restraining order against Amazon so that Amazon will have to restore Parler to their servers and allow Parler to continue doing business. And the interesting thing is Parler's contract with Amazon said that Amazon would have to give Parler 30 days notice before it canceled the contract. And it seems like Amazon is going to weasel its way through this and say, oh, no, we only suspended Parler. But they asked Parler to send, they told Parler, we're going to send you all your information on your users, which suggests that this is a permanent deletion of Parler, not just a temporary suspension. So it's a travesty and a horrific one at that. And hopefully Parler can get an order from the court.
Well, the couple of aspects here, as you pointed out, Parler was looking at alternatives in terms of hosting their servers. I mean, this is it's a massive undertaking to have that much capacity, and so Amazon really kind of cornering the market. And by the way, Amazon has a number of government contracts. This is one that the president kind of stepped in and blocked them from hosting the cloud for the Department of Defense, if I'm not mistaken. And so, it's a massive company, and it's like they have all the marbles. And so what Parler was doing is trying to pull together some of these smaller players, but they're being leaned on. It appears, Tyler, that this is a coordinated effort to literally silence, squash, whatever you want to call it, conservative speech.
Yeah, I don't see how you interpret it any other way. The tough situation is, and this is one of the cases that Parler made in its lawsuit. It said that Twitter had far more instances of inciting violence. On Friday, I think it was "Hang Mike Pence" was the hashtag that trended, and there were thousands of tweets regarding this act of violence against Mike Pence that Twitter allowed the trend to allowed it to trend, and allowed all that to appear. And of course, so the problem is you have Amazon saying, "Oh, we're going to kick Parler off because you have 98 instances of inciting violence on Parler," and then over on Twitter you have thousands of instances inciting violence.
Right.
And Amazon's not booting Twitter from their hosting.
Right.
And they had the same contract with both companies.
Right. In fact, I mean, you have Twitter right now on their platform, the Ayatollah calling for death to America. So and not to mention, as stated, not to re-mention, but I will at the beginning of the program, that back in June, the acting Secretary of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf, sent a letter to the tech giants saying that, let me just quote it, said that you played a role in facilitating burglary, arson, aggravated assault, rioting, looting, and defacing public property, calling for them to police their platforms. So, I mean, they have a record that is abundant in examples of allowing, this type of stuff on their platforms. Now, I think it's impossible to police everything, and people are going to use, I mean, they could use code, they could do all kinds of stuff. It's the double standard here that is the problem.
Right, exactly. And this is coming, this is Amazon, which is the same company that excludes conservative and Christian organizations from its charity platform, Amazon Smile, based solely on the defamation of the Southern Poverty Law Center, which, you're very well familiar with. Their attacks against FRC led to a terrorist attack against you guys, and they haven't removed you from the list. But yeah, this is what conservatives are dealing with, and I've been warning about this, especially with the SPLC, for years. So this terrifies me. But to say that it was entirely out of the blue would be false. Right.
But one good thing, I say good thing, Parler is going to fight. They're not going to sit back and be silenced, and they're going to make sure they get their platform back up. Now, I think the way forward is going to be very challenging. I mean, we've seen this. I would just say this to our listeners: you would be mistaken if you think this is a one-off, an aberration. This is what we are faced with going forward. This is the hostility of the left, the intolerance of the left. And so we have to adapt. And the good thing about Americans is that we have adapted. And a desire for freedom will drive us to alternatives. And so I have no doubt Parler will be back up. And even though the hill is high, Tyler, I think that there are going to be creative Americans who are going to fight back against these totalitarians and establish a means of effective communication.
Yeah, I'd agree. I hope we will rise to the challenge.
I have no doubt that we will if we do not lose heart. Tyler O'Neill, thanks so much for joining us today. As always, great to talk with you.